Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Alfresco Lunch and Learn on Digital Asset Management. My name is Henri Guillaume. I'm the Accounts Director with Parachute, and I've had 30 years of experience in the software industry, and 12 of them specifically in document management and learning management. What we're going to do today is we're going to start with a short video by none other than the founder of Alfresco, John Newton, and he's got some views on the future.
Last decade has seen dramatic changes in the way we work, more than at any time since the Victorian era, and the pace of change will only get faster. I'm John Newton, and in this short film, we'll investigate how these changes are affecting us all. Since the introduction of the computer, technology has been setting the pace as to how users use information, use the devices that access that information. It's not necessarily going to be about the science anymore, the complexity, the technology-ness, the geekiness of the technology. It's really going to be about creativity. It's going to be about the artistic side rather than just the technical side.
When you walk into an office in 2020, you're going to see rooms that are covered with flat panel displays. They'll all be touch sensitive, and there'll be cameras in these rooms that will be able to see what you're doing and know if where you're pointing. There'll be microphones that'll be able to listen to the things that you say, and not only listen, but be able to understand. You're going to rely on the room almost as much as you're going to rely on your colleagues as technology gets better and as it gets smarter. We as humans get to interact with it more like ourselves. In that sense, we will use technology, but we'll use it in a very familiar way.
It'll be a very different office than we've known in the past. There'll be much more focus on pods. Technology will be ubiquitous. The technology will be pervasive through the entire office. It will allow essentially to anticipate the kinds of needs that we have in an office. And it will really be driven towards facilitating the interpersonal communications that sometimes are a little stilted on video or conference calls. 10 years is a long time. I mean, when you think about the fact that the iPhone was invented only 6 years ago, think about all the change that that represents. So 10 years is a long time. It's content and information necessary to the job that we're trying to do, to the decision that we're trying to make at the right place at the right time, will magically appear because the technology is good enough and smart enough and intelligent enough to deliver that information at the right point.
You can start to improve the efficiency of normal office workers. So whether it's me being on a conference call and someone says, have you got this file, or have you got this document, or have you got this report, and my assistant being able to understand that and actually start to give me that information, something which I'm sure happens to all of us, and actually put it in front of me almost before I'm able to type in and search for it. That's extremely powerful. What we can start to do is break down the silos that normally exist within an organization, and rather than me as an individual having to do lots of things, the system can start to say, well, actually, Matt is particularly good at this, or particularly good at this, but less good at these things, and so those things can be reallocated to someone else.
Of course, technology is going to evolve. Of course, there's going to be new innovations. There's always been new innovations. But I actually think the next 10 years are going to be different. Whereas life became more complicated, usage of information, how we do our work, is actually going to become simpler. Technology is going to help us. Technology is going to be our friend in creating information, consuming information, and actually working together with each other in a way that kind of becomes more natural, feels easier.
When you walk into your office becomes aware of your presence. Your colleagues who are there will then also know that you're there because the office will let them know that you're there. I think the office in 2023 is not going to have just one intelligent assistant that's going to help you with the things that you care about. I think there's going to be intelligent assistants in every application that you might use, in every different meeting context that you use, and each will have a different area of expertise and be far more able to help you in those different domains. So if I open up my email program or whatever program I'm using to send messages to my colleagues, there'll be an intelligent assistant that knows all about my colleagues, how to send them messages, how to interpret my keystrokes or my voice commands. Some of them may be just in the background performing these intelligent acts on your behalf, and you won't even know it. Computing devices, computing technology will be everywhere. Every person will use dozens or even hundreds of different computing devices every single day.
A different world, eh? What we're going to do here today is go through this program. But before that, I'd like to go through a couple of housekeeping rules. The first one is the exit, in case of an emergency, through that door, over to the far end, our staircases, and that's where we exit. I guess we'll all follow Peter, because he'll be the first one out. Just outside here, we've got the toilet. There's the gentlemen's on the left and the ladies on the right. And you may want to put your phone on silent. At the end of the day, it's about not disturbing too much the other attendees, and less about taking me off track. So what we're going to do today is really go through a quick overview of who ParaShift are. That's us, who represent ParaShift. We've got then an overview of digital asset management challenges. So a couple of insights there that will help you to sort digital asset management and its issues in place. We'll do a demonstration of Alfresco. Now, please keep in mind that this is very much about digital asset management. Of course, there's a whole collection of other things that Alfresco offers, such as proper document management, records management, and those aspects. We won't actually be touching on them, but we are more than ready to come and give you a demo, entertain some conversations with you about how it can help. Then we'll have a short break for questions and a break for two reasons. The first one is because there's more food. The second one is because the mind can only hold as much as the bladder can. And so that's actually making sure that we can actually go on to the second half. The second half will be technical. And this will be led by Peter Esti, our resident Alfresco genius. He is the author of a large number of projects that we've been running with a number of clients. He does magic with Alfresco because it is so flexible. And a word of warning on this one, he is actually going to go into code. So he's going to go deep. So after that, some questions and answers, and obviously some networking. So, who are ParaShift? ParaShift is a relatively new organization. We started 3 years ago, and we started because we saw a gap in the market. The gap we saw in the market is that the traditional approaches that we have for managing documents, we found that they are struggling with keeping up with the growth of data that is currently happening. We felt that open source and those approaches were going to be a lot more adept at handling that growth of data and managing it than the traditional approaches. So we got together and founded the company. What we do now is basically Alfresco. It's really our core of what we do. We build our systems around Alfresco. And as Peter will demonstrate, we do a lot of customizations on Alfresco to ensure that it does what is required. The main objective there is to make sure that you get a system that actually addresses your needs, as opposed to you having to change your processes to adapt to a system that you just installed. Our mission is to bring order to chaos, which is a big, lofty mission, but we believe we can get there. We opt to make a difference. We play to win. Please do come in.
Sorry.
No, all good with the seat at the back there.
I'll grab another chair.
We play to win. We are innovators. We come in with new ways of doing things. So it's not about replacing what you already do. It's about coming up with suggested approaches on how to do it better. Gain more efficiency, gain savings in time and in money. And finally, we have respect, not just for our customers, not just for our fellow workers, but also for our competitors. Because when we do not win, we actually learn from that to get better. So, digital asset management is really about managing all sorts of files that are currently known as movie files, videos, audio files, images, and the new aspect around being able to geolocate images. Now, I've got some insights here that I'd like to share with you, and they're really about growth of content, about access to the information, and of course about compliance. So, in terms of growth of content, all this information actually comes straight from the AIIM, which is the Association for Information and Image Management. They estimate that information will grow by 5-fold over the next 5 years. Now, imagine if it is difficult to find information now, imagine what it's going to be when you have 5 times that amount. But more to the point, information is the lifeblood of your organization. At the end of the day, that information is what is going to drive some of the decisions that you need to make as you run your business. And as that collection of information grows, you need to be able to access what is relevant as opposed to what is maybe not that relevant. You should not be spending time looking for versions of documents and finding out whether this is the latest or not, or having people mark them as this is the latest version, right? Only to be superseded at the next version. 60% of respondents to a survey, and the survey is run over thousands of organizations, both big and small, 60% of respondents agree that automation is the only way to manage this. So get a better search engine, being able to automate the tasks around the documents. So instead of just having a document, sending it by email, having the system perform those activities. What about access to information? 49% consider it vital to have access to information. We're talking here about being able to access information the way that we currently work. Now, John Mancini talked about this. He said 6 years ago, this is now a couple of years also, 10 years ago, the iPhone came on stage and changed completely the way that we operate. In fact, chances are that before you finish breakfast or before you finish your commute, you will have caught up with all your emails and most of the important information that you're going to be working with throughout the day. And that would not be possible without the internet in your pocket. How does that change the way that systems that you have installed in your organizations, how are they coping with those changes? The vital here is really about, I could not do my job if I didn't have access to that information. 36% consider that it's important to at least be able to search for information and to access it within the organization's systems. And the final 15%, you wonder what they do. And yet there are organizations like this. Compliance is the third insight. 62% rely on their file share. Now, this is part of the issue that we find with talking with customers. A lot of organizations run quite unwillingly shadow IT. Employees use things like Dropbox to be able to share information, to share files with other people, mainly because the organization does not have a system in place to be able to share that information. So, the question remains, how do you know where your information is? Who has access to it? Who has downloaded it? Where it is now that somebody has gone? In terms of compliance, you would want to have a system that audits every single one of the transactions, so you know exactly where it stands. 45% indicate that a lack of information governance leaves them open to litigation. So my question is, which one do you fit in? 45 or the 65% who do not have this impression that litigation might suddenly hit them? So a modern digital asset management system will address these challenges. And how do they do that? With the growth of content, we're looking at one system. One system to manage the richness of your content, all in one go. And it has to be a system that scales, and scales well, not only in terms of holding the information, but in terms of the performance and delivering that information when you require it. You know where this is going, right? This is going to be about Alfresco. So Alfresco is one of these systems that does scale extremely largely, and the ability to be able to hold all that information within one system. Access to information is really talking about collaboration, about being able to upload assets, about uploading files and managing them. Creating workflows with those documents, being able to request people to take action on them and to get that response. So having an audited trail of what happened to the assets. And finally, compliance. That talks to managing the digital rights and the permissions, but also to creating records out of those documents. And Alfresco has a record management module that attaches to it, and that is now taking an increasing importance here in Australia. Something you may want to talk to us about, having a demonstration or something. So, Alfresco. Who is Alfresco? Alfresco is an organization that started about 10 years ago. We have two representatives of Alfresco. I'll introduce them now. There's Andrew Coffey, who's the Asia Pacific Sales Manager.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. Thanks for the invite too, Henry.
Welcome. And Luke Creswick, who is our resident genius in terms of the technology. So he does pre-sales, technical support, and an expert in records management as well. Alfresco itself, like I said, started 10 years ago. It now has over 1,800 customers in 212 countries. It has 7 billion documents under its management. So it's used by a large number of organizations which are really solid and serious about the work that they do. One thing about this slide that gets me is this one here, 95% recurring subscriptions. Alfresco operates on a subscription model. That means every year you get to decide whether you're going to continue using them for the next year. And so that means that they really have to offer a value for you to decide to continue using them. So it's not a system which you bought and basically stays there until a kind of perpetual license until you decide, oh my God, this is just so slow, so inefficient, how do I get rid of it and replace it with something useful? And you're kind of locked in. Okay, Alfresco look and go, that's it. Next year, we'll actually have this conversation. Do you want to continue using it? And the fact that it's 95% recurring subscriptions is really a commendation for Alfresco. So what kind of customers use Alfresco? NASA, the Department of Defense in the US, large organizations like Sony, like Michelin, like Fox, MasterCard. But closer to home, we have organizations like Ego Pharmaceuticals, who are one of our clients, Shark Bay Salt, up in the beautiful area of Shark Bay in Western Australia, IATSIS in Canberra, who hold Aboriginal art. and do digitization. We've got departments in New South Wales, in South Australia. We've got councils in Swan Hill. So a large collection of organizations across a broad range of industries. Now, Alfresco offer features around document management, record management, digital asset management, and of course web content services, but also have this interaction. And that includes, the team collaboration, rich media support, social publishing, so using that as a core to publish into other social networks, like for example YouTube. All this surrounded by the compliance and by records management. Compliance, again, about auditing all that happens on the system. And so what we're going to do now is see a live demonstration. Some of you are using Alfresco. Some of you have seen it before. But I understand the majority of you have not actually seen Alfresco in action. What we're going to do here is look at the interface that Alfresco offers, which is called Share. Now, it's by no means the only interface available. Alfresco is used by organizations as the back end, a repository for documents, and they interface to it through, for example, Moodle in the learning management space. They interface to it via a Drupal interface because they have an e-commerce need for it. Or they could even have SharePoint in front of Alfresco, using Alfresco for the scale that it offers to offset the difficulty that SharePoint has with large amounts of information. Specifically on the DANS aspect, we're looking at ingesting large files, we're looking at cataloging the information, and that means modifying the metadata, adding to the richness of what's already there. So we're going to look at automatic transcoding of information and renditions. So the ability to get the system to do the work in the back end so that you don't need to worry about that on the front end. You're basically just accessing that information. We'll also look at some of the aspects of clipping videos, bookmarking them, and commenting on the videos themselves. All this in the space around managing libraries, so managing documents themselves, the security, obviously, being able to authenticate and to get into the system. The search engine is particularly powerful and offers a number of aspects like facets. We're going to look a little bit on the workflow, but not spend too much time on it. And yeah, that's part of the social aspect of things. So, Claudia is going to be driving, and we do this a lot on tandem. But for Claudia, it's the first time she's trying digital asset management, which is going to be exciting. So, what we've done here is we've logged in as the administrator, mainly because it's our demo system and you get to see a lot more of the aspect. But be aware that as a user, you can have a number of different roles that can be defined. Every user has their own dashboard, and that dashboard is completely customizable to what they require to see to fulfill their role in the organization. So here we've got, as a default, we've got a number of dashlets, and each one of those dashlets offers an aspect of the information. The first one here is the sites. Now, a site is a demarcated area for managing permissions on the files. If you are not a member of that site, you do not have access to the files themselves. We'll cover sites in a little bit in a bit more detail further down, but really it is about the collection of information that you have here. You might store your information in various sites depending on the line of business you're working on or the project that you're working on. That's really what it maps onto. So for example, you can have a site for operational documents. So procedures and policies would be a site that is available to the whole organization so that you can have access to it readily. But you might have a project that could be an audit project, a Royal Commission, God forbid, and you might want to have the documents in there that are visible to specific people in the organization. Moving on to the next dashboard here, we've got my activities. Here we're running a bit of a running, we call it, I'm using the words, you make, I'll apologize up front, English is not my mother tongue, right? You might notice from my accent. It's a running commentary on what has happened within all of the files, well, all the sites that you belong to. So you're looking here at everyone's activities, at all the items that happen here, and it basically gives you a notification of what's happened in the recent past. Now you do have some filters here to be able to look at different aspects of that, and that really is according to what you require to do your role. Moving on to the next one here, we've got my documents. These are documents that you've recently modified. Now, the idea here is that you leave on a Friday on a holiday. You go on 3 weeks holiday, and you come back the week of your return. You go, I was working on some of those documents, and I cannot figure out where I put them. The idea here is that all of those are actually links. So they are documents that you've recently modified, and it's a quick access to documents that you were working on. Now again, you have a filter here, and you can also look to change that to look at documents that you favorited. In particular, documents that you use very frequently or you need to access very frequently. The final dashboard here is the tasks, and this really talks to the workflow system of when you set a task to somebody else. What will happen is they will get an email and they can access the task directly from a link within that email, but this is really where they can actually access one of those tasks that are allocated to them, and they can go through and work through the task. Moving on to our demo side, this is probably where it's going to get a bit more interesting. The site itself has got a dashboard again. In particular, what I'd like to point out here is two things. The first one is a wiki page. What we do here is we use this very often. It's all about notifying people what the site is about and where they can get help or where they can access the documents. This is all rich text, and the links are basically all active, so you can actually email directly people from there. Over here we have, this is specific to the digital asset management system, an image preview, so you have an idea of which files, which image files you have directly within that site. It indexes them across all of the folders and shows you them here. And then looking at this dashboard at the bottom here, this gives you an idea of what kind of files are within the system. This is part of the Alfresco analytics module, and it's interactive, so you can actually scroll over it and get information about the files themselves. On the left-hand side here, I've got a set of data lists. One of them is a list of contacts. Those will be contacts that are related to the project that this site relates to, right? Or in particular, site addresses. And this is not to replace other tools that you may have, like, for example, Outlook, contacts. But the idea here is to have things that are specific to the project, especially if you aren't going to invite people from external organizations into your site, which you can do. Right, what we're going to do now is going to go into the file vault. And we do that with just a click here of this link. Now, what you see here is something vaguely familiar because Mac Finder and the Windows Explorer have that approach as well. The folders on the left-hand side and the contents of the folders on the right-hand side. What we've got for you here, we'll go through that, is we've got a folder with music, And the idea of the digital asset management system is you're going to want to check what that information is. In this particular case, you can select one of those. Pick one. Thank you. Yeah, you lose control when you give that to your driver. And what we see here is basically a file viewer window. The idea of the file viewer window is quite obvious when you see a document, for example, is that you do not need to download the file to see what's in it. Okay, you are looking at the file here, and in this particular case, you can just click on play, and it will play. There you go. On the top here, we've got some information about the file, so in particular the file name, when it was last modified, but you have some social aspects here of being able to favorite a file, to like it, because you can even like those files and find out the popularity of files. Put a comment that is not within the file, but as part of the metadata. And then being able to share the file with external organizations. This is particularly powerful. So if you click on share here, you will see that Alfresco generates a URL, which is encrypted, and you can just copy that URL, paste it in your email, and share a document with somebody outside of the organization. They will not be invited into this Alfresco site, but they'll be able to look at the file, download it, and so you can share the document. Once you're finished, you can unshare that document, and the link is severed. So it's a really good approach to be able to share, especially large files, which you can't send via email. And that is really the biggest thing around replacing the Dropbox syndrome. On the right-hand side here, we've got some actions that we can take on the document. I won't go through all of them because there's way too many of them, but it's quite a rich aspect of what you can actually do on the document. In particular, don't go too fast. Don't go too fast. Just a bit. Fantastic, stop. What's important here is that the actions that you can take on the document are specific to your role within the site. So if you have somebody who's invited as a read-only member, then they can only look at the file, download it, but they cannot edit it, they cannot download it, lock it for editing, or upload a new version. We'll cover renditions a little bit later, but what we're looking at here is the properties of the file. So if you scroll up a little bit, yeah. We're seeing here a very rich aspect of metadata associated with this file. In particular, this is just the fairly standard name, title, and description of the file, but you find some audio-specific information on the bottom part here. Every file knows its type, so Alfresco knows the type of the file and can map the metadata specific to its type. Moving down, we've got what is called the PB core information specific to audio here, but on the video, for example, we see that is quite a bit more extensive, giving you all of the information about the file and about the rates. Fantastic. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to leave audio, we're going to go into video. This video offers a number of really exciting aspects. We've got some videos that we've uploaded here, and Big Buck Bunny sounds like. I've got to tell you, as when we present here, you've got to have a sense of humor. What we have here is, again, a similar approach. You'll see that the icon has changed. We've got most of the same kind of information. What we can do here is view that file directly online. So again, without downloading the file itself. So, fantastic. Now, what we have at the bottom here is we have the where the video is currently at, as it's downloading, and as you're playing, very much as you have on YouTube. We also have where it's at and the total length of the file itself. On this side, we've got a volume control and the ability to go full screen directly from share. But we also have two things here that are important. The first one is the ability to edit the video itself. So you can click on the edit button, and this offers now a yellow running line, which you can basically create a clip from this video. So we have this one, we'll take it at 16 seconds, and you can move from the right. Okay, and here what we'll do is we'll basically crop. And you can do that directly online. Once that is done, you've got a clip of your video the way that you need it. It'll recreate a number of transcoded forms. So it's doing renditions of this particular file. So while it's doing that, if we just scroll down, this is probably the appropriate time to talk about renditions. So what we're doing here is we're actually creating an H.264 proxy, but you can also create a number of other renditions of the file itself. So for example, the thumbnail that you see is actually one of the artifacts that Alfresco has stored for you inside of the system. It refers to that file, to that node, and it has an image associated with it. You could also create a medium JPEG. The way you do that is just by clicking on that little plus. It just creates the script. Let's be daring, see if we can break some stuff. You can see here that the H.264 proxy icon has just changed because it has created the proxy and has now stored it. And you can click on that plus, and it'll create a medium JPEG image of that. Do you want to read it? Why not? Okay, that's called the demo effect. And so let's scroll all the way back up. You'll see now that we now have a different clip of the video. So, right there. What we need to do to see also is the ability to add comments at a particular spot. So, what we're going to do is add a comment. Adjust that a little bit. So, what we're going to put a comment exactly to where the slider is, and so putting a comment. What Claudia has done is she's clicked on this little movie icon, which has inserted the current position of the movie, and she adds a comment. This will create a little marker on the file itself that shows where the comment is, and you can see one up here. Now, this also allows you to be able to click on that comment and go to that particular position in the video. Wrong one.
Sorry.
Excellent. There you go. Thanks, Peter. Fantastic. Right. Now we'll move on from videos, and we'll go and look at images. Images is basically the third type of files, of digital assets that you may be maintaining. Now, we've got images here of Melbourne, and each one of these images obviously is a link, so you can actually view the picture, but you can also see that the system knows it's an image, it's a photograph, and it knows where it's located. So what we might do is actually click on the beach houses in Brighton. See here, again, is the document, is the file viewer, and we'll see that the system knows that there is a geolocated image there, so we'll go down and we can actually view it on Google Maps. A bit higher. Awesome. Now click on Google Maps. Fantastic. And that gives you the location on Google Maps. Now you can scroll in, zoom in, zoom out, and do all the necessary bits and pieces as you require. So it is integrated directly with Google Maps. Let's go back to our, so we've used what is called the breadcrumb there that we have up there. So let's go back into the beach houses in Brighton. And you also see that we do have an edit icon here as well. If we click on that, it allows you, again, to be able to modify the files. If the file was loaded and you find out after the fact that it is the wrong way around, you can turn it around. You can crop the file, you can create a copy. So all of these things you can do, again, on the image. So a rich set of information that you can manipulate, a rich set of tools that you can manipulate your digital assets. So what we're going to look at now is the search facility of Alfresco. And how are we going for time? 12:45. Alfresco has has got a very powerful search engine associated with it called Solar. Solar indexes all of the metadata and all of the content of documents. So you can put any information in there, and if it has indexed it, it will be able to find it. And so here, let's look for, I'm not going to look for Brighton because we've got it right here, but if you put Albert, we should be able to find Albert Lake, right? Now, before you hit return, we've got an auto-suggest list of files. So Alfresco will present to you the list of files that it believes is the closest match by relevance to what you might be looking for. Now, if you want to carry on going down this list, you can. But typically what people will do, and most people do that, they just go enter. You get presented with the search results. Now, two aspects here. The first one is the search facets. So we're looking at a collection of information. It could have been a very long list. And what we have on the left-hand side here is facets that allow us to be able to hone in on the result that we're looking for a lot faster. So for example here, just clicking on the Alfresco demo site, which is the one we were working on, allows you to look at just the file that you were looking for. But you could also have clicked on any one of the other facets. So if you know when the file was created, or who created it, or who uploaded it, then you can do that very quickly with this approach. Now, we see here the thumbnail, the icon that's related to the file, but we could actually be looking at the file in a table view. So if we change the options, and we look at the detailed view, we'll see here more information about when, who modified the file, where it sits, and which folder it sits in. That, just hover on top of this. And you will see that there are some actions that we can take. So once you've got your search results, you can go straight to them and take action on that. And do basically what you could do in the file view window. Of particular importance here is that Alfresco will return a set of results that is based on relevance. The concept here is that it puts a weight on a variety of bits and pieces of the information. The title, the file name has got a higher weighting than content within the document, but the metadata is basically sorted out that way. It's all configurable, so easy to change. But it gives you the ability to be able to look for that relevance factor. It's a bit like the I feel lucky button on Google. So if you click on relevance here, you can see that you can actually sort the information on all sorts of other things such as the name, the title, the author, etc. But one of the things you can't do from here is you can look at files that were created, this week, this month, this year. You know that it's all the same. How do you do it to look at information that was created, between 2 months ago and 1 month ago, so during the month of January? What we do there is we basically look at the advanced search. And the advanced search allows you to enter the information and to basically do this, to basically create a filter on a modified date. But the reason I really wanted to go there is because we have an add-on to Alfresco, which is called the Map Picker. And the Map Picker is particularly, we're really proud of it. It's one of Peter's creations. So if you click on Map Picker, and we'll basically identify an area here. We'll zoom in and select an area. You can select as many areas as you want. Yeah, that one's big enough. And we just click on Apply. Now this, at the bottom, will have defined a set of latitude and longitudes, and we're just going to search on there. So we're not searching for any information specific. We're just looking for any document that is geolocated within that area which is looked for. And we have all of these documents. There are 23 results that have been returned, and that give you all of the files that are within that space. So that's extremely useful when you're talking about having documents. So for example, one of our clients has got sites that are geographically dispersed, and they might want to know if there's a bushfire, which ones are affected. So that's a really easy way to identify exactly the documents that relate directly to those particular sites. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to go into the workflow and look at the workflow of. So before we go any further here, what we're going to do is look at one of those files. If you click on them, we'll take the Shrine. Yeah, and I'll take South Bank. Why not? Click on that. Here we go. So this file is ready. Imagine it could be a document, it could be just an image. You need to have an approval on it. What we'll do is we'll create a workflow. And creating the workflow comes straight out of the box with Alfresco. When you click on that, out of the box we have a small set of workflows that typically review and approve workflows. This particular set here has got a few things that have been added by us on our demo site, but you have an ad hoc task where you can ask somebody to do something on that particular file. You have a number of review and approve workflows, and what we'll do is we'll take this last one, which is asking one person to review and approve this document. So typically what you would do is enter the information. So I love the fact that people would just please check. Then you go, hang on, I need to open the document to find out what it is. Anyway, let's leave it at that. You can put in a due date. That allows you to work out whether the task is now overdue or not. You can change the priority, but just be aware that if everything is high priority, then nothing is high priority. And then we'll set a reviewer. And the reviewer will just take ourselves so that we can actually work through the whole where is it? Administrator. Put in administrator. Oh, no items found. Where did we leave it? Let's put non-academy. Yeah, there we go. I actually do this. Put Carla. Carla is in there. So Carla is a normal user. She's called Carla Case, and we'll add her as the assignee. What we see here is a link to the document itself. We can add more documents, and in particular, when we start the workflow, an email will be sent out. So let's go ahead and start the workflow. I won't be able to show you the email, but we will see emails every day. Once the task is started, where does that person see the task? In her home dashboard. So let's log out and log in as Carla. And now this is going to be the magic, right? C-A-R-L-A. And the password is secure. It's Carla.
Secure?
No, Carla. But I mean, that's a secure next time. Right. So Carla has logged in. We'll go into her home. No, we need to go into Carla case. There is a special feature of. Look, before I go any further, this is actually a feature of Alfresco 5.1. The newest feature. You can actually change your home page to a page that is the current one that you're using. Which in this particular case, when she logged in, it was in this remittance procedure page because she chose to do that. Now, what we want to do is to go to the dashboard, and so she can just click on Use a Dashboard. That was just to confuse everything. Right, so what Carla has is at the bottom there, she will have a task that says, please check. So here we go, the task. So what she would do is click on that task, and she would review the document, so view it, decide on whether that's good or bad or indifferent, whether she's happy. She'd set the status to completed, and she'd go approve. Okay, and the task now disappears from her task list. So she doesn't have that anymore. What happens though is that as the creator of the task, so we're going to log back in a second, as the creator of the task, I've received a task back saying this document has now been approved or rejected. And there you go, it says the document was reviewed and approved. And what admin would then do is click on that task and mark it as done. Okay, so far so good. It's a very simple approach to task management. Obviously, some aspects of it, you might require a workflow that's a bit more complex, and that's exactly what we do, and we do that for a number of clients, such as the ability to be able to run through a whole workflow that is a lot more complex, but also looking at a document that needs to be reviewed every now and again. So, for example, standard operating procedures typically have to be reviewed every year, or in some cases every 3 years, and we can get the system to basically prompt you and start a task related just on that. Right, what we've covered so far is we've looked at a dashboard, we've looked at the various dashboards, we've covered audio, we've looked at a bit what we could do with that, the images. We've also looked at the ability to search for images on a geolocated, on a map. And we've looked at a video where we've modified some things. So this is pretty much where I'm going to stop this demonstration, mainly because I'm running out of breath, and because I'll open it up for questions. So any questions? Yes?
Geolocated images, you put that metadata in the back end so they will come up?
So you can do that, absolutely. So images that you take with your iPhone, if you have geolocation
I'm just
enabled.
asking how you did them in here. You put the metadata in with the geolocation.
No, so you upload the file. So I upload the file from here, and it appears in Alfresco, has got the geolocated information on it. For documents that do not have geolocation, yes, you can actually use a variety of features to enable that information.
Absolutely. Just extending on what Henry said then. So out of the box, Alfresco supports the EXIF metadata standard, if you're familiar with that. So pretty much every device in your pocket these days embeds 50 or 60 metadata fields that you may or may not know about, including your GPS coordinates, and that's automatically extracted and actually presented. So that's how it sort of drives that integration with Google Maps and other systems.
There you go. And that's the EXIF metadata.
There's another standard in the media management module, which is shown there, which covers IPTC, which is another common standard as well.
I love acronyms.
I saw a publish button, I think, when you were looking at one of the images or something. So,
yes.
I was just curious to know what it does.
This one here?
Publish, yeah.
So that ability to publish to an external channel. So what you can do is define a channel, like for example YouTube, or it could be another channel, and you send that information out.
Okay. Is that only for social media, or let's say I run a website or whatever, you know?
So there is in this particular case that is equivalent to social media. You're publishing to a channel, right? There is a completely. If you cancel out of that, there is another aspect which I haven't covered, but happy to cover it. It's actually the ability to sync to cloud. The idea here is that you have you're syncing this document over to a site in an Alfresco site in the cloud, where you can invite external parties to come and view the file. They have to log in, so they have to be authenticated. They have access to the file. You can have it as a two-way editing of the file, so they can modify the file, or they can just have a read-only. And you allow them to that two-way conversation is particularly powerful. We do, with all our clients, we do a project portal, so we share our project information directly with them using that mechanism. Very, very powerful. Allows you to be able to interface with external organizations without inviting them into the inner sanctum. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to store a whole lot of learning objectives from the curriculum in Alfresco. So could I, for example, have just an HTML object sitting in Alfresco?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So the files that it can hold are anything that is binary, that has ones and zeros, right? So any type of document can be held within Alfresco. And of course, the actions that you can take depend on the kind of file that you're going to be working with.
You briefly touched on reporting and analytics. I'm just wondering if that reporting capability is out of the box.
So the reporting module is a separate module to Alfresco. So if you download the community version, you will not have access to the reporting module, but it is an add-on, and it allows you to be able to customize your reports.
You've got a large image in Alfresco, and you want staff to download it for the, say, web purposes.
Yep.
Can you set it up with 3 different formats to download?
Yep.
And will I do it on the fly rather than having 3 separate images?
Yep. So, so you're not aware of the number of artifacts that Alfresco has defined for you, right? So the concept is this: you're looking at one file, but you have a whole collection of renditions. If we go back to, do we have that on the images?
I don't think so. We don't have it configured in the demo server.
Right. Yeah. So what you can do is actually take an image and basically create. So you create a thumbnail and a medium JPEG that it has created. It also created a PDF version there, but you can customize this. You can have, you know, a whole collection of other formats that you can define, and then use those elsewhere.
Users can use that information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, you remember the wiki that I showed at if you go back to the slide dashboard, you can even take the image there and embed it within the wiki itself. Okay, so all of that information is rich. You can use that information and create whatever you require.
Something that we often get is embedded videos. I didn't see any embed option there. There was a direct link to it. Is there such a thing as an embed option? So you can embed the video into, say, Moodle, and it would have its own player.
So what you have is you've actually got, if you go to the video.
It's having a direct link to it, but having it embedded into, say, Moodle pack would be useful.
Well, you just kill them.
Oh yeah, what do? You kill the system.
It might be this one, it might be this one, it might be that one.
Must have been your question.
Whoa, red.
Yes, sorry, whilst we're
sorting out the technology.
Sorting out technology, the H.264 proxy is web enabled. You can actually just grab this link and embed it to generate, I guess, the snippet around it to the actual like HTML. That could be something that can be easily done. The actual reference to the file there is obviously in here, so you can just grab that, or you can actually just grab the direct link and then just embed that as you go.
So the concept here is that all of these actions are actually customizable. So if you say, for example, I don't want people to be able to see this link, okay, we can actually disable it. And this is all Java code, so it's all easy to modify.
So it's HTML5, we don't need any add-ins or plugins to play these videos?
No.
And it's not Flash or anything?
No Flash. As of
no
version
Flash.
5.
That's the best part. It's all HTML5, yeah. Makes a big difference, actually. Any other questions? Fantastic. So what I'll do now is I'll invite you to help yourself to more food, and we'll do a 15-minute break. Is that right?
Yep.
And we'll get Peter to talk about technology